There is a moment before words arrive. It is small, often unnoticed, a space where the heart feels something before the mind tries to explain it. In that space, everything is quiet. The night holds its breath. The world does not ask anything of you, and for a brief time you are simply here. Have you felt it before? That pause, just before a thought becomes a sentence, just before a feeling turns into a reaction. It is not empty, it is full, but softly so. In this quiet, memories drift without noise. Old moments pass by like shadows on a wall. Things that once felt sharp now feel distant, as if they belong to someone else. Silence has a way of doing that. It does not erase pain, but it changes its shape. It turns loud emotions into something you can hold gently. Many fear this space. They rush to fill it with words, with movement, with answers, because silence feels like being seen by something deeper. But silence is not an enemy. It is a mirror that does not judge. When nothing is said, you begin to notice what has always been there. The steady rhythm inside your chest, the quiet strength that does not need to speak to exist. Sometimes, silence asks a question without sound. Who are you when no one is listening? Who are you when there is nothing to defend? In that moment, you may feel exposed, as if the world has stepped back, leaving you alone with yourself. But this loneliness is not empty, it is honest. This is where understanding begins. Not the kind that explains, but the kind that settles. Silence teaches slowly. It does not rush you. It waits until you are ready to notice. In the stillness, emotions rise and fall like gentle waves. You feel them, but they do not pull you under. You learn that you can observe without reacting. This is not weakness. It is a quiet form of courage, because reacting is easy. Anyone can answer noise with more noise, but to remain still when something inside wants to speak, that requires trust. Trust that you do not need to prove yourself. Trust that your worth is not measured by how quickly you respond. Trust that some truths do not need words. Silence holds dignity in a careful way. It does not demand attention. It does not seek approval. It simply remains. In this beginning, nothing dramatic happens. No great lesson is announced. No victory is claimed. And yet something important is taking root. A gentle awareness, a sense of self that does not lean outward, a calm center that listens more than it speaks. This is where the story starts, not with action, but with stillness, not with answers, but with space. As you sit here, listening, breathing, noticing, the silence sits with you too, patient, unmoving, strong in its quiet way. And for now, that is enough. After the quiet comes a different feeling. The silence no longer feels light. It settles deeper, like a weight resting on the chest. You sit with it, unsure of what it wants from you. There is a discomfort that grows slowly, not sharp, not sudden, just a steady pressure, asking to be noticed. Have you felt that kind of silence before? The kind that does not calm but stirs something inside, the kind that makes the heart restless even when nothing is happening. Thoughts begin to circle. They do not shout, but they do not leave either. They return again and again, carrying the same quiet questions. Why does this feel so heavy? Why does staying silent sometimes hurt more than speaking? In this space, emotions gather without words. Old wounds remember themselves. Feelings you believed were settled rise again, not to accuse, but to be felt. There is a longing to release them, to let something escape into the open air, because holding everything inside feels tiring. Silence can be gentle, but it can also be demanding. It asks you to sit with what you would rather avoid. It does not distract. It does not comfort too quickly. You may notice your body before your thoughts. A tightening in the chest. A shallow breath that comes without warning. A sense of waiting, though you do not know for what. This is the silence that tests patience. The silence that reveals how much you want relief. When words stay inside too long, they begin to press against the heart, not because they are dangerous, but because they carry feeling, and feeling wants to move. It is easy to mistake this discomfort for weakness, to believe something is wrong because peace has not arrived. But this heaviness is not failure. It is a crossing between what you feel and what you understand, between what you want to say and what must remain unsaid. In this quiet struggle, you may feel alone, as if no one sees the effort it takes to remain still, as if the silence belongs only to you. But this inner weight has been carried by many before, not loudly, not proudly, quietly. They carried it in moments when reacting would have been easier. They carried it when emotions asked for release. They carried it when silence felt unfair. The heaviness teaches something, though it does not explain itself. It shows you where you are most sensitive. It reveals what matters to you more than you realized. Without words, the heart speaks in pressure and pause. It shows you what still needs care. This discomfort is not asking you to act. It is asking you to stay present, to notice without fixing, to feel without escaping. And that is not simple, because staying feels like standing in the rain without shelter. You feel exposed, vulnerable, unsure how long it will last. Yet something quietly strengthens here, not the kind of strength that pushes forward, but the kind that endures. With time, you begin to see the weight differently. It is not an enemy pressing you down. It is a teacher slowing you, teaching you to breathe through unease, teaching you that silence is not always comfortable, but it is honest. You leer, and that discomfort does not demand reaction. It only asks for awareness. And in that awareness, something shifts. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just enough to remind you that you are still here, still steady, still capable of holding what feels heavy. The silence remains, but now you remain with it, and that too is part of the story. There comes a time when silence is misunderstood, not by you but by them. You feel it without being told, a subtle shift in the air, a distance that was not there before. They look, but they do not see. They listen, but they do not hear. And in your quiet, they begin to imagine their own meaning. Silence, to them, feels like absence, or refusal, or something unfinished. Have you noticed how quickly meaning is assigned when words are missing? How stillness invites assumptions? How calm can be mistaken for indifference? You remain quiet, yet something changes around you. Glances linger, pauses grow longer, the space between understanding widens. They may believe you are cold or distant or hiding something that should be shared. But inside, you know the truth is softer than that. You are not turning away. You are holding yourself together. Being misunderstood does not arrive loudly. It comes as a quiet ache, a feeling that settles behind the eyes. You wonder if you should explain, if a few words could clear the air, if silence is costing you more than it protects. There is a loneliness in this moment, not because you are alone, because you are unseen. Your intentions remain hidden beneath the surface, and yet something holds you back from speaking, not pride, not fear, but a sense that words, once released, cannot be returned, that explanations often invite more questions than peace. You notice how they fill the silence with their own stories, stories shaped by their fears, their past, their expectations, stories that do not ask who you are, only who they think you might be. It is strange to be present and still misunderstood, to stand quietly while meanings are placed upon you, to watch without correcting. This is where silence feels most fragile, not heavy like before, but tender, as if one careless word could shatter something unseen. You begin to realize that understanding is not something you can demand. It is something that arrives when it is ready, and sometimes it does not arrive at all. This realization brings a soft sadness, not bitter, not angry, just a gentle grief for the connection that could have been clearer. You may feel the urge to step forward, to speak in careful sentences, to prove that you are not what they imagine. But another thought rises quietly. What if being misunderstood is part of the path? What if clarity is not always immediate? Silence asks a difficult question here. Can you remain steady when your quiet is misread? Can you hold your truth without defending it? This is not about endurance. It is about trust. Trust that your stillness has meaning, if it is unseen. Trust that not every misunderstanding requires correction. Trust that your inner state does not depend on outer approval. Being misunderstood reveals something important. It shows you how much of yourself you are willing to give away for understanding, and how much you are learning to keep. There is strength in allowing others to think what they will, not because they are right, but because you no longer need to shape their thoughts to feel whole. Silence becomes a boundary here, not a wall, but a gentle line, a way of saying without words that your inner world is not open to assumption. The ache does not disappear, but it softens. You begin to see that being misunderstood does not erase who you are. It only reveals how deeply you know yourself. And in that knowing, something settles, a quiet acceptance, a calm that does not argue. You remain silent, whole, and the night listens even if they do not. There is a moment when the noise around you begins to fade, not because it disappears, but because something softer draws your attention inward. You notice it slowly, a quiet pull beneath the thoughts, a gentle presence that has been waiting without impatience. At first, it is easy to miss. It does not demand, it does not interrupt. It simply listens. Have you felt that before? That sense that something inside you understands more than you have said? That beneath confusion, there is a calm awareness watching quietly. This is not a voice that explains. It does not argue or defend. It does not rush to be heard. It waits until you are tired of reacting, until you have exhausted the need to be understood, until silence no longer feels like something to escape. In this inward listening, you begin to notice how much noise you carried inside. Old conversations repeating themselves, moments replayed again and again, hoping for a different ending. But as you listen more closely, those sounds soften, they lose their urgency, they no longer ask for resolution. The inner space becomes clearer. You realize that understanding does not always arrive from the outside. Sometimes it rises gently from within, not as a conclusion, but as a feeling of rightness. There is a subtle shift here. You stop asking what should be said. You start noticing what feels true. This realization does not arrive with certainty. It arrives with calm. You sense that not every silence is empty. Some silences are full of wisdom that does not need words. Some answers live quietly without explanation. As you rest in this awareness, the need to react loosens its grip. The urgency fades. The tightness in your chest begins to ease. You see, perhaps for the first time, that reacting was never about strength. It was about discomfort. It was about wanting the feeling to end. But now, the feeling changes on its own. Listening inward teaches patience, not the kind that waits for something to happen, but the kind that allows things to be as they are. Notice how thoughts pass without pulling you along. They come, they go, and you remain. This is where clarity grows quietly, not as a thought, but as a presence, a steady knowing that you are not required to respond to every stir. You begin to trust this inner stillness. It feels older than the moment, as if it has seen many storms and learned to stay grounded. From this place, silence feels different, not heavy, not fragile. It feels intentional. You understand that silence can be chosen, not endured. That restraint can be an act of respect toward yourself. That not reacting can be a form of listening. This realization does not push you forward. It settles you deeper. You are no longer pulled by what they assume or expect. Their thoughts pass at the edge of your awareness, but they no longer define the center. You sense a quiet boundary forming, not built from resistance, but from understanding. You know now that you do not need to explain your stillness. It belongs to you. It serves you. And in this inward listening, a gentle confidence appears, not loud, not visible, just a calm assurance that you can remain as you are. The night feels softer here. The silence feels like a companion, not a test. And within it, you listen, not for answers, but for balance. And that listening is enough. There comes a quiet choice, not announced, not explained, a moment where something rises inside you, then gently settles back down. This is where silence is no longer accident. It is chosen. You feel the familiar pull to respond. A thought forms. A sentence waits at the edge of your breath, but you pause. Not because you are unsure, but because you see the moment clearly. Have you noticed how reactions rush forward without asking permission? How quickly they offer release, and how slowly they leave consequences behind? In this pause, you sense the weight of words before they are spoken. You feel how they might land, how they might return to you later, unchanged. Silence offers a different path. It does not rush to correct. It does not compete. It does not seek the final word. Instead, it holds the moment steady. Choosing not to react feels strange at first, as if you are stepping back from something expected, as if stillness might be mistaken for surrender, but this is not surrender. It is awareness. You begin to see that reactions often come from wounded places, from the need to be seen, from the fear of being diminished. Silence does not come from fear. It comes from knowing that your value does not depend on immediate response, knowing that dignity can exist without defense, knowing that some moments are better held than answered. This choice does not feel powerful in a visible way. There is no rush of relief, no sense of victory. There is only calm, a calm that rests deep and steady, a calm that does not argue with the world. As you remain quiet, the moment passes, not with drama, but with simplicity. You notice how the tension softens on its own, how the need to respond fades like a passing wave, how your breath returns to a natural rhythm. In this stillness, something shifts. You realize that not reacting protects something precious, your inner balance, your self-respect. Silence becomes a shield that does not harden the heart. It keeps your space intact without pushing others away. It allows you to remain whole. They may not understand this choice. They may see quiet where they expect noise. They may fill the space with their own meaning, and that is all right. Because this silence is not for them, it is for you. You feel the strength in it now, not forceful, not demanding, but steady. You begin to notice how often silence speaks without sound, how it communicates boundaries gently, how it ends cycles without confrontation. There is relief in not needing the last word, in not carrying the weight of every moment forward, in letting things rest where they fall. This choice teaches you patience, not patience with others, but patience with yourself. You learn that every feeling does not require expression. Every thought does not require agreement. Every moment does not require reaction. And in that learning, freedom grows quietly. Freedom from explanation, freedom from justification, freedom from the endless exchange of words. Silence becomes an act of care, a way of honoring your inner world, a way of staying aligned with what feels true. As the night deepens, this choice feels less like effort. It becomes natural, almost effortless. You see now that silence is not the absence of strength. It is strength that has learned to rest. And in that rest, you remain grounded, calm, unmoved. The moment passes, you are still here, and nothing has been lost. Time moves quietly after that choice, not in leaps, but in small, almost invisible steps. You begin to notice changes that do not announce themselves. They arrive gently, like light entering a room at dawn. Nothing outside has changed much. The world continues as it always has. They continue to be as they are. But inside, something is different. Restraint leaves a mark, though it is not obvious. It does not show itself in words or actions. It settles deeper, shaping the way you feel within yourself. Have you noticed how holding back can sometimes feel like holding steady? How not reacting creates space instead of tension? How quiet moments begin to add up? With each time you choose silence, a subtle strength grows. Not the kind that pushes forward, but the kind that holds its ground without effort. You begin to trust yourself more, not because you have proven anything, but because you have learned you can remain calm when stirred. This trust is quiet. It does not seek reassurance. It does not need to be seen. Restraint teaches you to stay present, to feel emotions without being ruled by them, to let thoughts pass without following them into conflict. There is a dignity in this, a gentle, sense of self-respect that does not depend on outcome. You feel aligned even when nothing is resolved. Over time, you notice how your inner world becomes less crowded. Old reactions lose their grip. Certain thoughts no longer demand attention. You no longer replay moments as often. The need to justify fades. The urge to explain softens. Silence has created room for something else. Peace that does not come from agreement. Calm that does not require understanding. This growth is not dramatic. No one points it out. No one applauds. And that is what makes it real. You realize that restraint is not about denial. It is about choice. The choice to protect your inner balance. Each quiet moment strengthens that balance, like roots growing unseen beneath the surface, holding you steady when the ground shifts. You begin to feel less reactive overall, not distant, but grounded. Emotions still come. They still rise and fall. But they do not control your direction. You observe them with a softer gaze. You allow them their place, without letting them decide your actions. This is where growth lives, in the space between feeling and response, in the pause that gives you clarity. You start to sense a calm confidence, not bold, not expressive, just present. You trust that you can handle what comes without rushing to meet it, that you can remain centered even when things feel uncertain, that silence will not leave you unprotected. Restraint has become a companion now, not something you force, but something that supports you. It keeps you from saying what does not need to be said, from reacting in ways that do not serve you, from giving away your peace. You may still feel moments of discomfort, but they pass more easily. They no longer stay as long. And when you look inward, you notice something solid, a sense of self that is less shaken, a presence that feels whole. Growth through restraint does not change who you are. It reveals who you have always been. Calm beneath the noise. Steady beneath the movement. As the quiet stretches on, you rest within it. No urgency, no resistance, just a deepening sense that you are enough as you are and that this quiet strength will remain even when the night grows long. Here is the completed Section 6 script, written to flow seamlessly with the previous sections and maintain the same quiet, reflective tone. Time moves quietly after that choice, not in leaps, but in small, almost invisible steps. You begin to notice changes that do not announce themselves. They arrive gently, like light entering a room at dawn. Nothing outside has changed much. The world continues as it always has. They continue to be as they are. But inside, something is different. Restraint leaves a mark, though it is not obvious. It does not show itself in words or actions. It settles deeper, shaping the way you feel within yourself. Have you noticed how holding back can sometimes feel like holding steady? How not reacting creates space instead of tension? How quiet moments begin to add up? With each time you choose silence, a subtle strength grows, not the kind that pushes forward, but the kind that holds its ground without effort. You begin to trust yourself more. Not because you have proven anything, but because you have learned you can remain calm when stirred. This trust is quiet. It does not seek reassurance. It does not need to be seen. Restraint teaches you to stay present, to feel emotions without being ruled by them, to let thoughts pass without following them into conflict. There is a dignity in this, a gentle sense of self-respect that does not depend on outcome. You feel aligned even when nothing is resolved. Over time, you notice how your inner world becomes less crowded. Old reactions lose their grip. Certain thoughts no longer demand attention. You no longer replay moments as often. The need to justify fades. The urge to explain softens. Silence has created room for something else. Peace that does not come from agreement. Calm that does not require understanding. This growth is not dramatic. No one points it out. No one applauds. And that is what makes it real. You realize that restraint is not about denial. It is about choice. The choice to protect your inner balance. Each quiet moment strengthens that balance like roots growing unseen beneath the surface, holding you steady when the ground shifts. You begin to feel less reactive overall, not distant, but grounded, emot. Ions still come. They still rise and fall, but they do not control your direction. You observe them with a softer gaze. You allow them their place without letting them decide your actions. This is where growth lives, in the space between feeling and response, in the pause that gives you clarity. You start to sense a calm confidence, not bold, not expressive, just present. You trust that you can handle what comes without rushing to meet it, that you can remain centered even when things feel uncertain. That silence will not leave you unprotected. Restraint has become a companion now, not something you force, but something that supports you. It keeps you from saying what does not need to be said, from reacting in ways that do not serve you, from giving away your peace. You may still feel moments of discomfort, but they pass more easily. They no longer stay as long. And when you look inward, you notice something solid, a sense of self that is less shaken, a presence that feels whole. Growth through restraint does not change who you are. It reveals who you have always been, calm beneath the noise, steady beneath the movement. As the quiet stretches on, you rest within it. No urgency, no resistance, just a deepening sense that you are enough as you are, and that this quiet strength will remain even when the night grows long. There is a kind of power that does not announce itself. It does not arrive with sound or movement. It simply exists, steady and unseen. You begin to sense it only after everything else has quieted, after the need to respond has faded, after the urge to be understood has softened. This power does not push outward. It rests inward. Have you ever noticed how some presences feel calm without effort? How they do not compete for attention? How their stillness feels complete? This is that kind of strength. It grows in the spaces where silence has been chosen, again and again. It forms quietly without display. It does not ask to be recognized. You carry it without showing it. It moves with you, though no one points it out. It remains even when no one is watching. There is freedom in this unseen power because it does not depend on reaction. It does not rise or fall with approval. You no longer feel the need to prove what you are capable of, not because you doubt yourself, but because you know. Knowing changes the way you stand in the world. It softens your edges. It steadies your steps. You begin to see that strength does not always defend. Sometimes it allows. Sometimes it lets things pass without resistance. This does not mean you are unaffected. It means you are centered. You feel emotions fully, but they no longer pull you apart. They pass through a calm place within you. This power watches quietly. It listens more than it speaks. It understands that not every moment requires engagement. You realize that attention is a form of energy, and silence allows you to keep it, to spend it only where it truly matters. They may mistake this calm for distance. They may see stillness and assume absence. But you know the truth. There is more presence here than before, more awareness, more clarity. Power without witnesses feels different. It does not inflate the self. It grounds it. You notice how you no longer rush to fill empty spaces. Pauses feel natural. Gaps feel peaceful. You allow silence to remain untouched. You trust it to carry meaning on its own. This quiet power shapes the way you respond to the world, with patience, with restraint. Not because you are holding back, but because you are holding yourself. There is a sense of inner authority now, not strict, not demanding, just steady. You stand in your own presence without effort, without explanation, without defense. This power does not need validation. It does not measure itself against others. It simply is. You notice how this changes your inner dialogue. There is less noise, less argument. Thoughts slow, feelings settle, breath deepens. You are no longer pulled by every motion around you. You choose where to place your attention, and that choice brings peace. This power is not separate from kindness. It allows gentleness without weakness, silence without fear. You begin to understand that the strongest thing you can offer the world is a steady presence, one that does not demand, does not react, does not collapse. As the night grows deeper, this power remains unmoved by darkness, unaffected by noise. It stays with you quietly, not as something you use, but as something you are. And in this understanding, you rest. No need to demonstrate, no need to explain, just a calm, grounded presence, whole and unseen, carrying its strength in silence. The silence feels different now, not something you step into, but something you rest within. It no longer asks anything of you. It does not test your patience or your strength. It simply holds you, gently and without question. You notice how natural it feels to be here, how the stillness no longer presses on the chest, how it settles instead, like a familiar presence beside you. Have you felt this kind of quiet before, the kind that does not feel empty, but complete? There is no need to review what has passed. No need to measure how much you have changed. The quiet already knows. Your breath moves slowly. Thoughts come and go without leaving marks. Nothing pulls at you anymore. You are not waiting for understanding. You are not hoping to be seen. You are simply here. This is where silence becomes a companion, not something you endure, but something you trust. You feel whole without explanation. Your inner world feels intact, untouched by assumptions or noise. What is yours remains yours. There is a gentle satisfaction in this, not pride, not relief, just calm. You no longer feel the urge to revisit moments. They rest where they belong, in the past without weight. The quiet has given you perspective, not answers, but balance. You understand. Now that silence does not mean absence. It means presence without disturbance. It means strength that does not need to rise. In this stillness you feel grounded, your thoughts slow to match your breath, your heart feels steady, unhurried, nothing is missing, nothing needs to be added. You notice how the world feels softer from here, not because it has changed, but because you have. The need to react has loosened its hold, the need to explain has faded. What remains is simple awareness. You sit with yourself comfortably, without judgment, without demand. Silence has become a place you can return to, a space where you do not have to perform or protect, a space where you are enough. There is quiet confidence in this resting, not something that shows, but something that supports you from within. You trust yourself here. You trust the calm you have built. You trust that you do not need to fill every moment. As the night deepens, nothing feels urgent. Time stretches gently. You feel carried rather than pushed. Silence no longer feels like a choice you must make. It feels like a natural state, a home you have rediscovered. You understand now that inner strength does not announce its arrival. It reveals itself through peace, through steadiness. You are not separate from this quiet. You are part of it, breathing with it, resting within it. There is nothing left to resolve, nothing left to prove, nothing left to explain, just a calm presence, settled and clear, anged by what remains unsaid. The silence stays with you as the night holds on, gentle, reliable. And as you remain here, listening, breathing, aware, you know this quiet will be waiting whenever you return, not as an escape, but as a reminder that you are steady, that you are whole, and that silence, once feared, has become your strength.